Welcome to Make Someone Great Today. It's 6 o'clock California time, and we have another episode of this great show. And my name is Werner Mishka. I am the special guest host tonight. And my dear friend Dave Dicken invited me to host the show tonight. And that's because Dave is the guest. So I'm just really delighted to be able to serve in this way. A little bit about me. I work with a ministry called Mission One. I live in the Phoenix, Arizona area with my wife, Daphne, and I work with indigenous ministry organizations around the world. And I've written a book called The Global Gospel. And we have some expertise in the area of honor and shame. And so Dave and I have had the opportunity to talk a lot about this over the last few years. And I just love this brother, Dave, and so grateful for the opportunity to collaborate with him tonight. So Dave, we have a very significant topic tonight, don't we?
Yes.
The topic is suicide.
Yes.
And Dave, you have quite a bit of experience in counseling in this arena. So we've got some questions. And so let's begin with this question. Why do people have suicidal thoughts?
People that have suicidal thoughts have come to a place where they say, this is the only way out. The pain is so great that death by suicide is the only way out. Clients tell me things like, I've been to inpatient, outpatient, I've tried medication, I've applied myself to my coping skills, and nothing works. I'm tired of it.
So there's a desperation there where they just don't see any other avenues to address their issues and their problems.
There's a desperation, there's a hopelessness, and there's a sense of, this is the only way out from my pain. You know, some people think that there's these little voices that say, kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself. For some, maybe there's voices, but the data says, and the people in pain tell me as a crisis counselor, it's the pain. It's the pain that's driving me to this place where I believe that suicide or death is the only way out.
Wow. Wow, that's powerful. So Dave, how did you get involved with suicide prevention? Can you just share that story?
So my dad died by suicide. And what I just shared would fit his story. His story is that it was ongoing, decades of pain, suffering, depression, and a feeling of suicide is the only way out. And I'll tell my viewers on this broadcast tonight that if I knew today, what I know today, if I knew back when my dad was alive, the hope that we now bring people, if I would have brought that to him, potentially he could still be alive. So there is training out there. There is hope out there. But I want to say this, though, and it's important for the viewers to know this because it's my dad. He tried everything. He went through the books. He applied himself. He was very diligent about looking to get better. But at the same time, some third-party intervention could have been a little bit more helpful. Thus, my work today in this area.
Okay.
I'm not here to tell you it's going to go away. I'm not here to tell you it's easy, but I will tell you there's hope. And we're going to stand with you. And if you're suicidal, you're not alone. And we're here to listen and support you.
Yeah. So you became involved with Crisis Text Line. Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened and what Crisis Text Line is all about?
Crisis Text Line is a national organization across all 52 states, and the number is 741 741. Text hello. If you're in crisis, we want you to text hello to 741 741. It's the communication is over texting. We get a lot of youth and we get a lot of young men and young women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I got involved because I went to the suicide walk in remembrance of my dad and a high school friend who died by suicide. And I met the crisis counselors there. I went through the training, and then I became a crisis counselor about 4.5 years ago. I've supported almost 1,000 people on Crisis Text Line. The average call is about 45 minutes. And in some cases, I'm actually able to take more than one call just through, communication over texting.
Yeah. So your communication with these individuals is not by talking with them; it's just by texting with them in a dialogue about their concerns, and you found this to be really effective.
Yeah. So we follow what we call the 5 stages of the conversation, where we start with rapport building. And then we explore what the goal of the conversation is. We look to identify a goal. We identify coping skills, commitments to stay safe. We work with people that are hot. When I say hot, they're suicidal, or they're cutting, domestic violence, trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so to answer your question, yes, it's texting. And that's why we get so much youth, because all the kids have a phone. And let me tell you something, viewers. I've had single digits. What do I mean by single digits? 9-year-olds, 8-year-olds,
Wow.
7-year-olds.
Wow.
It's out there, friends. And that's why we're on the show tonight, to bring education and awareness to this very hot topic, especially with COVID and shelter in place and the isolation.
Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about what else you do in the community? When you say the community, what do you mean by the community? And share a little bit about what you do.
So through my training and experience at Crisis Text Line, I'm now able to get involved through word of mouth or shows like this. And I get calls from people right here in the Diamond Bar, Brea, Southern California, human sex trafficking survivors, lots of trauma, Werner. So I get calls like that, and I have a team of people that stand with me and support these folks with respect to the pain that they're in. So I teach classes at churches, the Boys and Girls Club, various nonprofits, Radiant Health Center down in Newport Beach, regarding the LGBTQ, and we're here to bring hope to people and to offer them assistance in their pain.
Yeah. There are different kinds of groups in our society. Some of them have a lot more stresses than others, and statistically, certain groups have a higher suicide rate than others. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what groups are these, and tell us what you've learned about this, Dave?
Yeah, so the data says that the highest group is the LGBTQ. The highest group, yes. The highest
Why is
suicide rate.
Why? Yeah, can you share about why you think that is? What is it that they struggle with? I think that's probably surprising. That might be surprising for a lot of people, but share a little bit about that.
It's very surprising because the military suicide is very high, and actually the LGBTQ is actually higher.
Wow.
So what we have then are outcasts, people who feel different in a bad way. It's okay to be different in a good way, but if you're different in a negative way, you bring it on yourself. And one of the things that people do when they feel different is it becomes their identity, Werner. I do
What do
not
you mean by
associate
that?
my identity as
Yeah.
heterosexual or as a
Right.
man
Right.
or a
Right.
father or a dad or a husband. My identity is being created in the image of God. And I'm thankful for that because that's how God made me. But for people with a body image issue or homosexuality or bisexual or transgender, their sexual orientation or their gender can often become their identity in a negative way. So, Werner, one of the things that I experience when I counsel, and this is scary and it's very painful, people tell me things like, excuse me, people tell me things like, I hate myself.
Really?
I
Wow.
hate myself.
Wow. How do you respond when you hear that from people?
So basically, Werner, it's more about what we do than what we say. You know, I could tell someone, oh, don't hate yourself. But that's not necessarily the answer per se in terms of a methodology.
Mm-hmm.
But through caring and listening, I can build them up. And we can talk about why they hate themselves. And that can be helpful in getting them to embrace who they are. You know, we talk about resilience in the world of crisis or mental illness or trauma. We talk about resilience. And one of the things that we present with respect to resilience is embracing change. You know, change is difficult and change is part of life, but people that embrace change are the ones who later say, you know what? When I began to embrace that change, I started to feel better. That was the turning point. That's when I reprogrammed my thought process, is when I embraced change. Werner, when I meet with people, I actually encourage them to be optimistic. And often we'll lead support groups and we'll ask folks, what do you think about optimism? When you talk to someone who's experiencing trauma and you bring up optimism, I flat out ask them, how do you feel about that? When I say that word optimism, what goes through your mind? I ask people. And they'll say, most of the time they'll say, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for optimism. And that's okay. Viewers, if you're in pain, if you're experiencing trauma and you're not optimistic, that's okay. But we're here to help you embrace optimism. We're here to give you hope so that in turn, you can embrace optimism. I didn't say it's going to go away. I didn't make you any promises that the pain's going to go away. But I will stand with you in being optimistic.
You mentioned earlier, Dave, that the second group that is the second most dangerous group for suicide is the military. And I've heard this also myself. I have a good friend who's a chaplain in the military, and he has told me about the severe issues of depression and trauma, what's it called?
PTSD.
PTSD.
Disorder. In a nutshell, it's trauma, Werner.
Yes. So what do you tell military families, veterans, when they have a family member who is struggling with depression or suicide?
So first, when we talk about veterans, it's a community that is not necessarily open about their feelings. So here's what I want to share to you, men and women who serve in the military. Men and women who serve in the military that have experienced trauma, who live with trauma. Please allow me to speak to you right now. Talk to your chaplain. That's a confidential conversation. The chaplain will not pull your wings. The chaplain will not pull your medals. Talk to the chaplain. And if you're a chaplain, if you're a family member and you're supporting a veteran, your job, your primary goal is to create safe space for your loved one to be open about their feelings. We need to be able to find a place where we can listen to learn. Let's not listen to judge or bring correction. Let's listen to learn. We're all learning. We're all finite. God knows everything, but we don't. But God teaches us through experience and through friendship and through counseling, like Werner describes a relationship that he and I have. So we learn together. So
That's
we
powerful.
have what I call non-judgmental listening. Let me tell you what non-judgmental listening is. So mom has a 14-year-old daughter that's on medication for her depression and anxiety. And daughter comes home and says, I don't want to take my medication anymore. Werner, what's mom going to say?
I think normally mom is going to say, oh, yes, you will. But that's not the right response, is it?
Well, when mom says you need to take your medication, as you so rightly point out, Werner, daughter might not be open next time that she doesn't want to take her medication. She might say, oh, mom, I'm taking my meds, but actually she's flushing them down the toilet. So how about this, friends? How about this, Werner? So daughter says, I don't want to take my medication anymore. How about this? You know what? My loving daughter, I know that you were really hoping that that medication would help you to feel better. That must be very frustrating. You're probably very discouraged that the medication's not working. How can I best support you in this dark moment?
So you're really trying to empathize with the feelings that underlie the statement, I don't want to take my medication.
Yeah, you bring up a good word, empathize. Empathize is where you go and you sit. Empathize is where you go and you sit with people in pain. You don't understand their pain. You could, but you might not. And what you do is you sit and you listen and you learn and you stand with them. You don't try to bring them to where you are or where you think they should be. You go to where they are and you sit with them.
Yeah.
And you ask questions like, how can I best support you? Can you tell me the last time you felt like this? What encouraged you to feel better?
Yeah.
Who best supports you in your family? We ask clients.
You're giving us a lot of good suggestions, Dave, and we really appreciate that.
It's about open-ended questions, Werner. So we don't say when it's better to say, "How are you feeling?" In other words, we don't say, "Are you feeling better?" When it's better to say, "Can you tell me how you're feeling?"
Yeah.
You see the difference? We don't want to load the question.
Right. Yeah. I've even heard it said recently that with regard to like all the COVID stuff that we're dealing with, instead of asking, how are you? It's because, then you're getting into good or bad. Ask, how's your day been? And it's a little more open-ended. That's really good. So
no, again,
Dave,
we want people to be free to express
yeah.
how they're
Mhm.
feeling. We don't want to
Mhm.
judge people when they say, I don't feel good today. Some of my friends say things like, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to have a bad day. If you're having a bad day, why don't you give me a call? Why don't you send me a text? Who are you going to call if you're having a bad day? Can you go for a walk? Can you walk your dog? Can you ride your bike? And so on.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of families have family members that they know they're struggling. What are some of the signs that they should be looking for if someone is in their family who may be thinking about taking their life? What are the signposts?
So let me answer it this way. First of all, the policy says, the chief medical officer says, I'm not a doctor, I'm a counselor. The chief medical officer says, and it's a mandate for me as a crisis counselor, always ask. We want to be direct. When your loved one says, I'm wasted space, this world doesn't need me, the pain is too great, we can then ask the question, when you say, I'm worthless, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are
Wow.
you suicidal? We must and we want to be direct. My daughter Brooke will tell you, be direct. Crisis text line will say, always ask. If you don't want to ask, if your son or your daughter is isolating, and we'll get to the signs here, Werner, and you're fearful about asking, then have someone else do it. Have your husband or a sibling go into that room with the person who's isolating and say, are you feeling suicidal?
Yeah.
You can call
Dave, that's one of the most practical suggestions I've heard on this topic, is to be direct. Because I would think that families who are struggling with this, they don't know what to say, or they're afraid to even bring it up with a family member.
They're afraid to bring it up because they think they're giving the ideation. I asked a girl the other day that I was helping through some trauma. And so I said, with everything that's going on, are you feeling suicidal? You know what she said? Surprisingly, no, she said. Usually when I talk about this, I do feel suicidal, but today I don't. My point is this. I did not give that person the ideation. Yeah. Because I asked about suicide, they didn't have the ideation. If your loved one is cutting, if your loved one is burning, if your loved one in some way is self-harming, ask them, have you been cutting?
Yeah. Interesting.
Let me go a little further, and you're supposed to be asking me all these questions, but I'm having a thought right now.
Yeah, go for it.
Parents, it's so important. This safe space for your loved one, for your children to be open about their feelings is so important. And let me tell you a story. I was supporting a girl who had been clean from cutting for 2.5 years, she told me. I said, how did you stay clean? Oh, I was in the hospital. I said, how did you stay clean in the hospital? Oh, I was separated from the means. Okay. I said, who best supports you? And she said, oh, all the nurses in the hospital supported me. I said, that's wonderful. But who in your family best supports you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she said, oh, my dad. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, my dad. Werner, you're a dad. How would that make you feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know
Yeah.
what I asked her? I said, did you tell your dad that you've been cutting? And you know what she said? Oh, no. I can't tell him I've been cutting.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
this is what we're dealing with, Werner.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't fault her dad. I don't fault her, but there's an honor there that you talk about in your book, Global Gospel, Honor and Shame. She doesn't want the shame of her dad knowing that she's cutting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we propose the best way to approach that is third party. If you're concerned about your loved one, get a cousin involved. Find out who your son or daughter's friends are and get them involved. Get your spouse involved. Get a sibling involved. I'm going to meet with a young man next week, and we're going to meet with his sister, the three of us. My friend actually told me, I haven't told my sister everything. He's told me what I guess is everything, but he hasn't told his sister everything. So I'm going to help him tell his sister everything. And I'm going to help his sister help him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great.
So it's
That's
very
great.
important, friends, that you find out who best supports your loved one who's in pain. Maybe you want it to be you. Maybe you're a mom and you want your daughter to call you when she's in pain. Well, guess what? Maybe she doesn't want to talk to you. You can address that as a mom. That's understandable. That's what moms do. And moms are good at it. And moms rock. And all you moms out there know how I feel about you because you get my text messages. But sometimes your children they don't want to feel that shame. So get someone else involved. And maybe it'll go full circle and it will be you ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
But let's take baby steps. Let's create, I'm going to keep saying this, let's create safe space for your loved ones to be open about their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
That goes to military, that goes to homosexuality, that goes to transgender, that goes to parenting. If you're supporting someone, the words are this: create safe space for your loved one, your children, whoever you're supporting, to be open about their feelings.
Mm. Yeah, there's a powerful, powerful dynamic when people are free to articulate their feelings and they feel heard.
Yes.
Because when they feel heard, they feel validated as a human being, they feel honored. And this is sometimes really sorely missing in our culture of honor competition and shaming people and bullying and comparing ourselves with other people. This sense of this personal sense of value and dignity can be really elusive to people in pain. Yeah.
We're advice givers. Baby boomers, God bless baby boomers. I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1964. That's the last year. And I pump baby boomer blood. But there's some negatives with baby boomers. Baby boomers are advice givers. Baby boomers measure themselves based on performance. Werner, that's your expertise in your work. Performance, status.
Yeah, our value, because we're created in the image of God, is really independent of our achievements or family name. And this is it's really difficult for us to actually grasp that. And
because of the society and the culture that
Yeah.
we're in.
yeah,
But
yeah,
we're bringing awareness tonight. We're bringing education tonight.
right.
And there's resources, friends.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about suicide prevention and safety planning?
So suicide prevention, we do things like ask direct questions. We separate people from the means. And then we have safety planning. When we
Whoa,
safety
whoa,
plan, we
okay.
ask for a commitment.
Mm,
If you're feeling suicidal, can you commit to?
mm,
So we want to explore and discover what our loved one can do when they're feeling suicidal. You know, we support people that live a lifetime feeling suicidal. We support people that have attempted suicide. We support people that have survived a suicide attempt. So we help them with safety planning and we craft a plan.
mhm.
When you're feeling suicidal, can you text your uncle? Can you text your cousin? Can you text hello to 741 741? If you're feeling suicidal, can you commit to calling 911? If you're feeling suicidal, can you commit to sharing with me how you're feeling? You could ask your loved one. There's also resources on my website, makesomeonegreattoday.com. On that website, there's two buttons, LGBTQ and mental illness. Unfortunately, the two go hand in hand in many cases. We talked about the high suicide rate in that community. And when you click on mental illness, you'll see a resources tab. And on that tab, you'll see things that, things you can load, on your phone. Safety planning can be on your phone. And if you're watching tonight, I want you to program in your phone right now, 741 741. Save it under crisis. And share that with your friends. Share that with your loved one. And ask your loved one for a commitment to text hello to 741 741. And there's some other safety planning applications. I say applications because of this world we live in with phones. There's some apps you can actually have on your phone that have coping skills, 911, people you call. You'll see that on my website. So for additional resources, go to my website, makesomeonegreattoday.com.
Dave, I think our time is up. Is that correct?
Well, we're getting there. Yeah, hopefully this was helpful. I see some viewers.
Do we have more time for questions, or do you,
if you have a question, we have more time.
Yeah. You talked about people living a lifetime with suicidal thoughts. And there is a kind of real hope in just that statement, right? Because suicidal thoughts are, it's not just an episode or a chapter that sometimes people go through.
That's right.
In life, and then it goes away. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, you kind of said it yourself. Sometimes we think, oh, they went through it, they survived, or they were suicidal last year. But unfortunately, some people live a lifetime experiencing suicidal thoughts. I've got lots of stories about people who are supported by their spouse, their mom, their children. And we just want everyone to know, all the viewers to know, that we're here to help you, we're here to listen, and we're here to stand with you in your pain. We've got resources like NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. There's various chapters. I participate in the Orange County chapter in Southern California. We offer a class called Family to Family, where I'm one of the teachers. And what we do is we help people support their loved ones. It's not on suicide per se, it's on mental illness, but we do cover suicide. So the resources are there.
Hmm.
and I'm available, and my contact information is on my website.
Hmm. I've got one more question, Dave. Uh, you and I are both followers of Christ, and for us, mental health is an important issue. You know, you mentioned your dad passed away from suicide. My father also struggled for uh, a good portion of his adult life, probably the last 30 years of his life, with bipolar illness, manic depression, and he really suffered from that tremendously. And I remember being in church as a young person and feeling like there were so few answers for the struggles. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about how um, people in the ministry, churches, pastors, church members can integrate their faith with addressing the issues of mental illness in their families or in their communities, their church family.
When we look at the stories in the Bible, we deal with real stories. King David in the Psalms and in the narratives is a real person, a real king with failures, with sin, with regret, with repentance, but he also had God. Job had God.
Yes.
Paul, the Apostle Paul, had God. And when the Apostle Paul was in prison, he said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He didn't say his circumstances were going to change. He didn't say God's going to get me out of prison. He said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Why did he say that? Because the battle's in the mind, friends. The battle's in the mind. It's how you feel. When we're supporting our loved ones, or if you're a survivor, or if you're struggling with depression or anxiety because of a circumstance, God will help you feel better. He might not change all your circumstances. He might change some of your circumstances, but you know what he will do? He'll build you up. And the body of Christ will build you up. As followers of Christ, we'll stand with you and we'll build you up. And the word that we like to use is resilience. Resilience is the ability to do well during difficult circumstances. Resilience does not mean that it went away. Moreover, resilience can be learned. Yeah. And there's some unique components to resilience that we have in other teachings that we're not going to cover tonight. But it's all about resilience. It's all about that strength to get through difficult times. You know, Jesus said, in this world, you will have tribulation. You know, we know that. So Jesus said, but take courage. Yeah. Because I have overcome the world. Notice Jesus didn't say your problems are going to go away. Jesus said, take courage. So if you're watching tonight, we encourage you to take courage. Get your courage from God. You know, King David said, the joy of the Lord is my strength. That's the story that God shares with us, is that our strength comes from him. And don't do this alone, friends. If you're a veteran, if you're a homosexual, don't do this alone. Reach out to a friend, the clergy, or you can contact me directly, because what we're going to do is we're going to listen.
Dave, thank you so much for sharing from your heart, your passion, your wisdom concerning these really significant matters. We live in a hurting, broken world, and I just so applaud the work that you have put in to understand these issues, to serve people in very practical and wise ways, to be a friend to hurting people and the marginalized. And I really see Jesus in you, brother, and I'm so grateful to be your friend. And thank you for sharing with us tonight about this difficult topic of suicide, and for giving our viewers hope about this issue, some practical resources. So it's been my pleasure, my honor to be a part of this conversation with you tonight, Dave, on your show, Make Someone Great Today.
You know, let me, you know, a story just came to my mind, and then we'll wrap things up, Werner.
Okay.
I was on the platform at Crisis Text Line, and if you're wondering what that means, I'm on my computer when I'm supporting these texters. And I got a message from a man who was in law enforcement, and he was suicidal. And he described his circumstances as, I can't leave my house, I haven't shaved, I don't want to live. He told me what he saw when he was in law enforcement. It's too graphic to even share on this show, what he shared with me. You know what I said to him? I said, it sounds like you helped a lot of people. Wow. And he replied back, I did, and I loved my job. And this is texting. And he put love in capital letters.
Wow. Wow.
We talked further. We focused on some safety planning. And then I said, as I brought the conversation to a close, I said, you're a good man. And he said, and so are you. Yeah. You know, friends, we're all in this together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, thank you, Dave. It's been encouraging to spend these minutes with you. I guess about an hour altogether, right? Well,
45 minutes, yep.
And I hope that this message gets out there.
It will.
And shared on Facebook and elsewhere. So thank you, Dave. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you about these things tonight.
Thank you for being the host, Werner. And you know, even if you're a guest or a host, there's only one requirement, that you make people great. Werner, you make people great. I know your story. I know what you do in these indigenous nations and these indigenous communities. And I also know that you make me great.
Well, to God be the glory. God is good. So.
Good night, everyone. I'm taking over even though Werner's the host. Thanks for watching. It's going to be on Facebook. If you have any questions, reach out directly on my website. Good night, everyone.
Good night.